Hello, welcome to the 12 hacks of Christmas, and today's the big one, how to do the perfect Christmas roasts. We're going to do one standard roast, and we're going to do one tray of roast potatoes that might be a slight twist that you might want to consider doing in place of normal spuds. So the perfect roast potato relies on the meeting of perfect ingredients and exacting method. So you want to start with the ideal potato. If you haven't got the right potato, then the whole thing's doomed from the start. And the key characteristic of a potato you need for roast potatoes is they need to be floury. So we're using Sorrento potatoes, and these are on a par with King Edward potatoes. And what I mean by floury is that when you cook them, they are fluffy and light and kind of break up in the hand. The opposite of that is waxy potatoes. You kind of see that in the summer with salad potatoes, and they're much denser and they are good for slicing and boiling, but they don't break apart in the way that we need a good floury potato for a roast. For our second dish, we're going to use these red skin alouette potatoes. Again, the flesh is floury, they've got good structure, but because we want to keep the skins on the potatoes for the second dish, these have got attractive skins, they're going to look great when they're cooked. For a traditional roast spud, you want to peel your potatoes first. You want to peel them and cook them before you get them into the oven. As best you can, you want to try and make sure that you cut all your pieces as evenly as possible. Nothing too big, you're not trying to show off. Nothing so small, you're not trying to make chips. It's one of my pet peeves when people cut their roast spuds at different sizes. If you've got one tiny spud and one large spud, throughout the entire process, they're going to cook at a different speed. You want to try and get roughly the same size and thickness and roughly the same surface area. Then they're going to cook at the same speed in the pan, and they're going to roast at the same speed in the oven. Okay, so now the potatoes go into a pan of water. Now you need to start your potatoes in cold water, and you bring that water up to a boil. Now if you put them into hot water, boiling water, the outside of the spud's going to cook faster than the inside. If you bring them up together with the cold water, it gets over the inertia of cold inside that potato, and you get an even heat moving through the potato. Put it into boiling water, you're going to get an overcooked mushy outside and a raw inside before you know it. We're going to season this water when we boil the potatoes. And this is the bit that usually makes most people kind of draw a breath. We're going to add a fairly high amount of salt to that water. Lots of people are cautious about the amount of salt they take in. What we're trying to do, we're trying to cook those potatoes in a water that's so heavily seasoned that those potatoes absorb some of that salt. So that when it's gone through the roasting process, when you bite into that potato, instead of it being a potato with salt on the outside, when you bite into it, that potato is seasoned all the way through. Now this is our chance to get that flavour into the potatoes. So we're going to add a good pinch of salt into there, and I'm going to throw some aromatics in there as well. You can add some herbs like thyme or rosemary into there. I'm going to throw in a fresh bay leaf, and I'm going to throw in half a bulb of garlic. Turn your spuds on, bring them up to a boil, drop them to a simmer and cook them until they're just done. So you want them just before they're completely cooked through. You don't want them falling apart in the pan, but you definitely want them cooked through to the middle. As they're coming towards being done, I'm going to show you a good trick to test them. Where your potatoes are coming to the boil, flick your oven on to about 200 degrees centigrade. You want it to warm up, you want it to be nice and hot when your spuds go in. And about 5-10 minutes before you think your potatoes are going to be ready, put a lick of oil into your pan, a couple of mils deep, throw your pan in. You want it to go in for about 10 minutes because you want your potatoes to come out of that pan once they're drained and go into hot oil. I tend to use mostly veg oil with a dash of olive oil in it. Now you can use goose fat or beef tallow or other kinds of fat when you're roasting your potatoes. It's entirely up to you. Don't use butter because it will burn inside the pan. Now these seem just about ready to me now. I've given them a poke with a knife tip and they seem to give to that, but I just want to check that they're perfect, and I've got a little trick that I always use. It's slightly perilous, but I take one out and now I sit it in a dry tea towel and I give it a squeeze. And what I want it to do is I want it to give and just break up when I squeeze it. If it doesn't do anything, they're not ready. If it turns to complete mush, it's gone too far and you're doomed. Now drain your potatoes and put them back into the warm pan, off the heat, but give them 5 minutes to sit and steam and let that excess moisture on the surface of the potatoes just steam away. Now get your roasting tray out the oven. The oil in there should be really, really hot. You should see it shimmering in the bottom of the pan. If you're not sure if it's hot enough at all, flick a tiny bit of water into the pan. If it fizzes and gets all angry with you, then you know that it's ready and perfect for the potatoes. Now tip those drained spuds in, give them a good turn in that oil and remove any of the detritus, any of the garlic and bay leaves that were in the pan as well. Give them a really, really good turn so that they're coated. Now it might sound pedantic, but I take the time to turn those potatoes and make sure that each one has got a flat surface touching the bottom of the pan. so you get some nice browning on those potatoes. And it's very, very important that you do not crowd that pan. You want it one layer deep, and you want them to have a little bit of space in the pan. They're going to go in for about 25 to 30 minutes, and you do not want to touch them. That's really, really important. Don't go in and play with them, don't flip them around, don't shake the tray, don't open the oven. Just leave them in there to get some colour on them. It's really important. More contact time with the pan undisturbed means crisper, browner surfaces on your potatoes. Then after that, remove them from the oven, give them a quick turn, pop them back in for 20 minutes or so until they're crisp and finished. So these are lovely and golden brown. They're nice and even, they're not burnt, and they've got that beautiful, almost glassy surface to them. You can hear it when you tap a knife against them, but when you break them open, they're lovely and fluffy in the middle. Now, if you did want to add any herbs to the pan, any rosemary or thyme, you can add them for the last 5 minutes of cooking. Throw them through the potatoes just to coat. Next, we're going to look at an alternative to a standard roast. These are what are often called on restaurant menus smashed potatoes. They're basically whole potatoes, small or medium-sized potatoes. They've been boiled in the same way with salted water, a few bay leaves, a little bit of garlic in there as well. But we've kept the skins on. Instead of a deep-sided roasting tray, we want a nice flat baking tray, and we're going to build it up in a layer. We're going to put some sliced red onion on the bottom of the tray. Got some baking parchment so they don't burn too much or fuse to the bottom of the pan, but if you've got a nice non-stick tray, all the better. We're going to add a dash of oil and some salt, and we're going to turn the onions in the oil and salt and spread them out in a nice even layer. Then we're going to take these potatoes and we're going to just place them on top of the onions, and we're going to press them down with the heel of our hand so that they split open and flatten onto the tray. And then finally, we're going to brush the top of those potatoes with oil and give them a light sprinkle of salt. Turn your oven to 200 degrees C, have it preheated and ready to go, and slide them in there for about 40 minutes or so. You want them to be completely cooked. You want them to be nicely golden on top as well. So these smashed potatoes have been in there for about 40 minutes. They've started to colour on the top. The onions beneath them have softened and sweetened and been shielded from the direct heat of the oven by sitting underneath the potatoes. We're going to take some sage leaves and we're going to throw them with a little bit of oil and salt. Now these sage leaves will crisp up in the oven. They only take about 5 minutes or so, but the essence of their flavour is in the oil and the leaves, so it will actually flavour the potatoes that's sitting underneath them as well. So that is Christmas roast potatoes, 2 different ways. We've got traditional and we got something a bit different here. So thank you very much for watching our Christmas veg hacks. Please feel free to comment, like and share below. Give these spuds a try and have a very Merry Christmas.